Alright, I am back. I've been promising to do this for a couple of days now. The time is like, what, 12:15. Just got back from work and it's snowing outside and it's been a long, long day. Anyways, I was going to talk about Lashley and Henderson going to Strikeforce. Sorry guys, if I sound incoherent at any point, it's because it's been a long day. Anyways, so I will probably start with Henderson going to Strikeforce first, then I'll talk about Lashley. I was a bit surprised hearing that he'd gone to Strikeforce because I thought he was going to go to stay with the UFC. But after the Bisping fight, I'd heard that his contract actually had expired, which was the talk. And the other talk was he was going to be fighting Anderson Silva in a rematch, which is what Dana White himself had said countless times. I think even at the UFC 100 show, and even uh, after the Silver Griffin fight, he was saying Henderson was next in line. And I think probably what did it was um, after Affliction crashed, Vitor Belfort getting signed, and then Vitor Belfort being brought into the UFC, beating Rich Franklin, and then getting a title shot. And Henderson has already beaten that guy. And I think in the minds of people like Dan Henderson and Nate Marquardt, they're saying he hasn't fought in the UFC for a long time as a middleweight. It's taken a while for us to, get ourselves back into the contention. And this guy is just coming in and bypassing all of that, having one fight, and which was at a catchweight, and then getting the silver fight, which is probably what the middleweights in the UFC think anyway. I don't know. And I think in the UFC's mind, they're a business. They want fresh fights, and they probably felt, well, no one's ever seen Belfort and Silva before ever fight, and Silva's beaten Henderson and Marquardt. So if we give them Belfort and Silva, no one knows who's going to win that one. So I guess that's what they were thinking. And anyways, it looked like Henderson was going to stay, and then he was not going to stay, and then he was going to stay, and then he was doing interviews saying he's in negotiations with the UFC. Then it gets out that apparently his lawyer was talking to Scott Coker, and then Henderson did an interview saying nothing's been signed yet, but as far as the UFC goes, he was expecting his next two fights to be Marquardt and Anderson Silva. And then a few weeks later, it turns out now he's signed with Strikeforce. And the thing I find interesting is he's got some interesting fights. He's been saying he wants to fight Jake Shields, which I think is probably highly likely to happen. I think that's going to be his first fight there anyway. And if they're smart, they will get that on the CBS show because you need a name guy. He's also said he wants to fight Musasi. That would be interesting, but I think Musasi might have his number. I'm not too sure, guys. I know a lot of you probably know more about Musasi than I do, because I've only seen a few fights. So, chime in on what you think would happen there. And then he said he'd even fight Fedor, which is interesting, which, I don't know, I wouldn't mind seeing. It would be interesting to watch. Um, but for Strikeforce, that's a good acquisition of talent. Henderson in the middleweight division bolsters it up. Um, the thing that makes me laugh the most actually is that Dana White is being Dana White about it and now saying, well, Henderson's career is done. He wasn't worth the money. Rah, rah, rah. Henderson, anti-Henderson rants basically. The thing is, Henderson probably is going into Strikeforce with more momentum than Dana really wants him to have. Because when you think about it, alright, granted, he did lose to Quentin Jackson in September of 2007 in that unification fight in London. He did lose to Anderson Silva, but think about this. Of all the fights Anderson Silva's had, Henderson was probably the guy that looked the best against him. Probably the only person to actually look competitive against him, and people want to see that rematch. So in that way, he wasn't, a damaged good. He beat Polares. I can't say his name right. Husmar Polares. He beat him. And then he beat Rich Franklin in a heavily promoted fight. And then he had 10 weeks of primetime television on Spike TV. So now more people know his name because of The Ultimate Fighter Season 9. And then he was on the biggest MMA card of this year at UFC 100 and had a highlight reel knockout of Michael Bisping, who was a bit of a UFC poster boy. I'm a fan of Bisping, but I mean, he was a bit of a poster boy. So Henderson's name and drawing power probably had gone up, and now everyone wanted to see him fight Silva again. So he has more momentum. So it's not like he's coming off the back of about 3 straight losses and he's just going there. It's the other way around. Henderson is still a serious threat in the middleweight division, and even if he wanted to fight at 205 again. So you know, it will be interesting. If they're smart, I'd say get him on the CBS show. He could have some interesting fights with Shields, maybe even Matt Lindland, although I don't think that will be possible. He would rip Frank Shamrock apart, and I'm sorry, I am a Shamrock fan, but he would beat him. Robbie Lawler would be a hell of a fight to see, actually. Kung Lee would be an interesting fight. You know, he's got some interesting fights. Strikeforce are still building their name. And then the other one is Bobby Lashley. Now, that's very interesting to me. I'm surprised the UFC didn't go out of their way to try and negotiate with him a lot more, considering now all the problems they're having with all their current heavyweights, because Lesnar is off, I think, for a while. They had to postpone Nogueira's fight because he's been injured, or staph infection, sorry. Quite a few heavyweights, I think, have been out on the shelf for the UFC, so they've had some problems. Oh, obviously Krokop, I don't know where he stands. Oh, no, he's fighting next year, isn't he? But they've had some problems, and you know what? Signing a Lashley or someone like that would have been a good thing. Um, Not just that, but how can I say it? I think signing Lashley to Strikeforce was a wise move. I think the reason why the UFC didn't go all out is probably because Lashley wanted to do TNA wrestling and the UFC, and obviously the UFC do exclusive contracts, so it's probably why it didn't work out. But still, it's a shame they didn't explore that option a lot more. But Strikeforce, they've got a name, an up and comer. I don't want to sound patronising when I say that, but an up and comer. Lashley has looked alright in all his fights. He's won 4 fights. The first fight was just very quick. I think they stopped for lossage of blood. He slammed the guy, and then the guy was bleeding, and they stopped the fight. His second fight against Jason Guida was alright. I mean, he showed some promise, but he also showed some holes in his game, because he could have finished Guida, and Guida almost put him in had him in a triangle and could have tapped him. And then he had another fight after that. I think it was Jason Cook, and he choked him out within the first round. And then obviously he beat Bob Sapp and showed some ground and pound and took him down. So he's kind of just building his name right now. I think his name will continue to build in Strikeforce. That's another name that if you're going to use, because of his crossover appeal and because of his somewhat celebrity, that's a name I'd probably use on the CBS show if they get the chance. Probably use him and Henderson on the same show. That could probably maximize the impact, and maybe Fedor. He probably matches up reasonably well with a few of the heavyweights. I'm sure a lot of people want to see Lashley fight Fedor, which could probably work, if nothing more than drawing people. I wouldn't mind seeing him and Brett Rogers fight. I wouldn't mind seeing him and Arlovsky fight, because apparently Arlovsky is going to be fighting for Strikeforce soon. Him and Overeem would be an interesting one. I think Overeem would put his chin to the test with his stand-up. The same thing with Rogers. And who else is there? There's quite a few heavyweights that I wouldn't mind seeing him fight. But I think this is a wise move. The next step in Lashley's career now is probably he's gonna be fighting stiffer competition. So I hope he's doing the right things with his training. And from what I hear, Josh Barnett, never say his name right. Josh Barnett probably will be next in Strikeforce, because allegedly once his medical suspension, and all of that stuff gets sorted. Apparently, Coco has been on record saying that he will talk to Barnett, so that would be interesting. So, all in all, it looks like it's going to be a good few weeks down there, a couple of months. I mean, Strikeforce have got a show on this Saturday, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to watch that. Kung Lee versus Scott Smith, definitely, I'll watch that. And other than that, I'll probably be doing another MMA video in a bit, in a few days, or maybe I think probably on Saturday. So I'm gonna head out. I'm now gonna do a wrestling video after this. It's gonna be a long night. So guys, take care, and I'll see you all soon. Later.